Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on our webinar of financial goals and planning for millennials. I'm David Verdugo, Senior Manager in MBAF's Tax and Accounting Department and Sports and Entertainment Practice. Today, Shawn Wooden will explore steps you can take to build financial security for yourself and your family, even in uncertain times like a pandemic. Shawn will show us how to take a financial selfie, help us define how we picture our financial goals, and how to create a solid financial plan. For those of you interested in CPE credits, please make sure to answer the polling questions we'll be launching throughout the presentation. If you have any issues with the viewing questions, please send a message through the Zoom chat and our marketing department will assist you. Towards the end of the presentation, we'll have a Q&A session in which we'll cover the questions that you submitted prior. We encourage you to also use the Q&A button here in Zoom to submit additional questions, which we'll cover if time permits. Now I want to introduce you to today's speaker. Shawn Wooden turned to finance after a successful 9-year NFL career. The Notre Dame graduate and former captain has 14 years of experience in the financial services industry. Wooden completed an executive program for retirement planning at the Wharton School of Business and is a top-of-the-table member of the $1 Million Roundtable, an international independent association of more than 29,000 of the world's life insurance and financial service professionals. He is the vice president of the NFLPA former Players South Florida chapter, president of the Miami Dolphins Alumni Advisory Board, works regularly with the NFLPA, and is chairman of the Maxwell Football Club. I'd also like to add, Shawn doesn't know this, Shawn and I were neighbors in 7th grade. And when I was in 7th grade, Shawn and I were neighbors. And every time Shawn would come home for practice, he would say hi or wave hi. So the moral of the story today, if you don't take anything out of this, is always be nice to your neighbors so you never know the day that he'll be moderating your presentation. Now, before I turn it over to Shawn, I'd like to launch the first polling question. How would you describe yourself, your current financial situation? A, living paycheck to paycheck. B, got some spending cash. C, investing. Or D, trying to manage debt. Give everyone a minute here to. All right, it looks like a majority of you are interested in your current financial situation is mostly investing. We got a couple people that are trying to manage some debt and others with got some spending cash. Very good. All right, now I'm gonna pass this over to Shawn, and Shawn, take it from here.
Oh, thanks, David. Hey, it's good to see your face. Hey, you threw that on me, everybody. I didn't realize that, David used to live right next door and everything. And hey, like you said, it's always good to be nice to your neighbors because you never know when they're going to be introduced to you many years later.
You never know.
Dating me, you're making me seem a little bit old now. But hey, so let's get started with this. So basically, we're going to talk a little bit about taking a financial selfie. With social media and selfies have shaped how we see ourselves today. So today we're going to take that concept and apply it to your finances. We'll educate you on how to take a financial selfie so you can evaluate your situation, become armed with some knowledge, hopefully that you learn from this, and help you to reach your financial goals. So this is a little bit about who I am. This is my little bit Facebook or whatever social media plug of who I am. I probably definitely don't have that many friends, but as you see, like David said, I studied at University of Notre Dame, actually got my degree in computer science, had a minor in finance, and I live in Pembroke Pines. But, everybody always says, how did I really get into the financial world? Well, it basically started because, again, I had that minor in finance, but I was taking care of my finances and I was seeing my teammates getting taken advantage of every day. You heard so many horror stories, especially when I played. There was a 30 for 30. Everybody might have seen it. It's called Broke, where you saw a lot of even our local players that we watched from on it, where they didn't really take care of their financial house while they were playing. Also, you see, I have a new friend that's in Tua, our new starting quarterback, as well as the legend Dan Marino. So, just quick plug out to the Miami Dolphins. And I'm from Philadelphia. So let's talk about today. Today, as you may know, we'll be discussing money and finance, but we're going to go about it in a much different way. Everyone in here faces challenges that are unique to this generation. Challenges that are being addressed with the same solution: more information. I mean, we all know information, right? I mean, it's easy to get to. Just click on the internet, pick up your phone, and everybody, I always say, just Google it. So, you have more information than we know what to deal with, and people are still struggling in areas with finance and debt, even if we have all that information. And as you know, your finances are important, but the last thing anyone in here needs is another guilt trip. And you definitely don't need me preaching to you, telling you what and what not to do. What I've found that people really want is just clarity around their finances and someone to talk to them like they're human. They want to worry less because they know they're doing the right things. Well, me and my team, we listen and we think we've come up with a little bit something basically tailored specifically for you, the young professionals. You know, you can call it making sense. Making sense is behavior, habits, and problem solving all apply to personal finance. This is a simplistic approach that's based around what's important to you, not to me, not to anybody else, not your mom, not your dad, not your coworkers. It's what's important to you. And our goal today here is to basically, again, give you a game plan to be able to handle your personal finance. So has anybody on here ever seen the YouTube video, the experiment with the kids and the marshmallows? Basically, it's around, these kids were around 8 years old and they're placing the chair at the table in the room. And on the table was a large marshmallow. The only other person in the room was the instructor who told the kids that they were going to leave. And when they came back, they were going to bring a second marshmallow. However, in order to get that second marshmallow, the kids they couldn't eat the first one, basically. And the instructor didn't tell the kids how long they were going to be gone. So everybody in here knows 2 marshmallows are better than 1. Kids know this, you know this, I know this, but the temptation was a little bit too great for these kids. Most of these kids ended up eating the first marshmallow and failing to get the second one. Why is it so hard to wait? Why, basically get that second marshmallow. So why is it so hard to wait? Why does it now seem so much more important to us than tomorrow? Well, a lot of this has to do with our genetic disposition. It's basically our chemical reaction that happens inside our brains every time we see things and we buy things we like. So basically, you're being rewarded for spending on things now today instead of saving for tomorrow, where you get all these marshmallows. So as humans, we make decisions on 2 major emotions: pain and pleasure. It gives us instant pleasure to spend money on things now versus the pain of saving and waiting for that second marshmallow. Companies know this and they're capitalizing on it all today. I mean, Amazon is the best at it, I think, personally. For instance, it's a business model now, especially in major cities, where you get same day delivery. Same day, that is. They're spending hundreds of millions of dollars to deliver you the enhanced pleasure of eating your marshmallow now versus have to go through the pain of waiting a few days for it to come. I mean, our parents and our grandparents definitely didn't experience this. They couldn't go on and just make a click. If they did want, that sweater that they wanted, everything, they had to go through a 400-page Sears catalog, basically pull out a form at the end of it, fill it out, mail it, and it took 6 to 8 weeks basically to get delivered. Not as quite as satisfying as, that one-click button. So what can you do now? Well, you have to do something because your environment is basically setting you up to fail. If you want to be successful, you need to play an active role in your financial lives. First step is playing an active role and setting up a game plan. In football and sports, we always had a game plan. Had a game plan on how we're going to attack this opponent. Had a game plan even during the off season of we're going to gain weight, gain some muscle, lose weight if you're an offensive lineman, maybe a little bit too heavy. But you always had that game plan. And the game plan gives us a reason as humans, basically, to make those hard decisions in our everyday life. The ones that are not so gratifying, like I said, having to lift weights, going, maybe cutting your diet or changing your diet. But it gives us a reason basically to, drive that old car for another year, maybe a reason to have a roommate for a little bit longer, or a reason to bring your lunch to work. For a game plan to work best, you need 3 parts. It needs to be important. That's the first one. If you really don't like marshmallows, what's the reason really to care about that second one? If someone tells you that you need to save more money for retirement, yet all you want to do is pay off your student loans, why would you ever go and increase your 401k plan contributions? You probably wouldn't. So start by picking something that's important to you. What's that second marshmallow and why do you want it? The next thing is, you need a due date. If we look at finances like as a marathon, let's break it up in a bunch of 5Ks and 10Ks. It makes it a little bit easier. When we were back in college and you had to write that paper, would it have been better off for you to basically turn in a paragraph a week or turn in that whole, basically the whole paper at the end of the 4 months? To me, I know what I would have done. It would have been probably better for me to turn in those papers for, turn in those paragraphs every week, because I was probably the one that would wait to the end to be able to try to do as much as possible the day before it was due. So, but in real life, you don't have those turn in papers every week. We don't have those checkpoints really along the way. So we have to create them ourselves. If it's going to take 2 to 3 years to save for a down payment on a home, break it up into basically, let's say 3 months. 3-month intervals it's doable. It makes it a little bit easier. This will help create some urgency as well, because you have those checkpoints. You really want to reach them and to reach that final goal. So it creates that urgency of now. And the third thing basically is you need an action plan. How are you going to do this? What are you going to do that's different? Where's the money going to come from? What's your weekly or monthly check-in process? How can you commit to doing these check-ins? The more specific you are, the better it is. Also, the quicker you take action on these things, the more likely you are to follow them through the entire plan. But how many people in this Zoom call basically, made a goal of some sort and failed? Can't see show of hands. And also, can anyone think of a time that a lot of people make goals and almost everyone fails? Yeah, we're getting there about that time. It's about New Year's resolution. What's like those first few weeks of the new year when you go to the gym? It's jam-packed. But what happens a month later? So it's great now that we have a game plan. Hey, I told you, you had to create that game plan, but how can you stick to it? That's the key. Sticking to making the game plan, but also sticking to it. Well, again, there's 3 ways that you can basically help. One is, the first one is starting small. Next one is automation, making it automatic, make it, it's basically almost like a George Foreman. Might be dating myself with that, but George Foreman said it, forget it. And then accountability. So let's first start with, starting small. Let's say you're no longer the person who lives by the rule of 1 marshmallow in the mouth is better than 2 on the plate. What is it going to be like when you have to sit down at the table again? There it is, that yummy marshmallow staring right back at you, saying, eat me now. What's going to happen? There's a good chance that your mouth's going to start watering. Your mind will come up with all sorts of reasons why waiting is stupid. Change is hard. Again, we have to rewire our brains. Your normal habits and behaviors are ingrained in us a lot deeper than we even care to admit to ourselves. You have to realize this and work with it. What would be a better approach? Maybe a better approach would be, eating half that marshmallow and setting it aside. Then you get that next marshmallow, you eat half of it. It says, at least you're starting, at least you're getting something. It's very hard to just quit cold turkey and changing what you do. The key is continue to make progress, build up your success. And the more success you have, the better chance you have of completing that goal. So again, setting aside the whole marshmallow at once might be a little bit more difficult, but if you break it down and at least starting to do something, it's better. It's like going into the gym and saying, hey, all of a sudden I want to lift 225 pounds 20 times. I'm not going to go in there and just try to attempt that, especially if I've never been. I'm going to build up to it. So it's about building up to it as well. And then automation, when you automate, let's go back to that marshmallow story again. Let's change the rules. What if you tell the instructor, hey, how about you take this marshmallow with you, and then when you come back, you can give me both marshmallows back? That's a foolproof way. Take the temptation off. Well, there's a way you could do that similar with your own money. What if every pay period, if it's on a bi-weekly, weekly, or maybe even a monthly, sometimes we see, what if you just take a little bit and direct deposit it right into a savings account that you don't even look at? It's a better method to go to than manually have to go through basically each pay period and send that money on over. Now, again, it's a lot easier now than it was back in the day. But today, even though we still find it hard when we tell people, hey, make sure you go in every pay period and send that money over to that other account. So when you automate it, it makes it a lot easier. It's about working smarter, taking the work out for us. Most of the time, finance and other things, it's not about trying harder. It's about just being smarter, organized, and setting up systems that enable us to succeed. And then the third thing is accountability. Sometimes we need that buddy to pick us up at 5:30 in the morning to take us to the gym. Sometimes you need somebody to stand by us and encourage us not to eat that marshmallow. It'll be a lot easier if those kids had somebody, maybe a parent, a trusted friend, or somebody else in that room saying, don't eat it. You're going to be able to get that second marshmallow. People are usually, as human beings, we're generally known to do more for others than we would for our own selves. For instance, what's the best way for you to get your house clean? Invite a couple friends over for dinner, and then guarantee it's going to get done right away. It's amazing. Trust me. I used to do it when I was in college. Wasn't inviting friends over for dinner, but if you might invite, somebody over to your dorm room or your apartment, it's amazing how fast you get that place cleaned when maybe it went months without being cleaned. So again, we can apply this to our finances. Start with a spouse, a friend, even maybe a financial coach, planner, or advisor, someone you can invite into your financial house to help you stay on track. If you find yourself missing your monthly or weekly check-ins, make a commitment to maybe shoot a quick message, text message, or a short email saying, what you've done for that check-in. The key thing is, find somebody you can trust, and person could be a tremendous value. In football, like I said, we had coaches all the time. So I'm used to having that person that you're going to, do something for. So we talked about that. So, let's see, how are we going to find some extra money basically to use for this new game plan that we came up with, or that you've come up with? Remember, it's for you. So doesn't come from somewhere, right? It doesn't come out of the air. And setting, the game plan can't be, I'm gonna go buy a lottery ticket and win the Powerball all of a sudden. So one way is to help is, I hate to say it, but it's called budgeting. I know if I could see you, I would probably see a bunch of eye rolls, some sighs, but let's talk about it for a second. People either love budgeting or they despise it. You probably see more people despise it or just don't even think about it. How many people really love it? How many people here, tried it and despise it? Why is that? Why it didn't work? Well, the reason why most people don't budget is because sometimes it takes just too much time and it's not fun. Being in the financial world, I'm always talking about budgeting to my clients and prospects and people that I meet with all the time. But when you really sit down and really see where your money goes, it's a reflection of your values. Something that your money and your true values sometimes they don't align. But and it doesn't make us feel too great about ourselves. So you just stop trying and you just say, forget about budgeting. I'm gonna just wing it. But budgeting is intended to do the opposite of that. True budgeting is putting more money in areas you want it to go and using less money in areas that you care less about. So people always wonder, how much money they should be spending, how much they be saving. This is going to be vary tremendously over the amount of people that are on this call. Everybody's different. Everybody's household is different. But I'm going to provide a suggested benchmark for you to take and apply to your own situation. Think of these 5 areas as different accounts. And basically, here's how the typical household allocates their money. Housing, they usually go 33%. Then savings is about 12%. Entertainment's 3%, especially nowadays, are living in the pandemic world. We're not going out as much and everything. Food is about 14% of what, their salary or what they're bringing in, household income. And then 18% is on transportation. And these are coming from basically U.S. Bureau of Labor back in September of 2019 when they did this. So again, this is pre-pandemic, but I'm seeing once I'm meeting with clients and everything, I might see a down in the entertainment, but more up in the food because they might be doing Grubhub or something like that. Definitely transportation's down because, I had one client that said basically she filled up her tank of gas only twice since March. So definitely her spending on transportation has been down. But while there's no ideal budget out there for the mass, this is one that we try to stay in with most of our clients. Since everybody's priorities are different, this is a little bit different. But the bottom line is basically having a budget. It's critical, and it tells you where your money is going. So for housing, we try to say let's do 25%. Savings 10%. No, it's a little bit down than what we said. And this is savings outside of putting in your 401k, actually. So this is, the savings of after your basic gross of everything you have taken out of your paycheck. Entertainment, hey, we're giving you a boost in that. Let's go up to 5% instead of that 3% we saw before. Then food, we're going to take that down. Sometimes, again, food and entertainment are sometimes entwined that we see people, sometimes people going out to a restaurant and enjoying with their friends. They that's food, but it's also entertainment. And then on transportation, we bring down about 15%. Let's make sure that you drive a car that's doable for you. Now, putting together a budget doesn't have to be difficult. It's pretty simple now, especially nowadays, because there's several free online tools that can automatically track your expenses. There's mint.com. There's a app that's called Yodlee. And then a lot of your online banking or your banking has an app that does it for you as well. Some even credit cards do it for you. The key basically is do not spend more than you make. Again, I'll say the key is do not spend more than what you make. So it's important also, to have an emergency fund before anything else. Life happens. Have enough money set aside to handle the unexpected, like a big car or home repair. You might be at home if you do or are a homeowner and that air condition goes out. Where are you going to get that money from? So loss of a job also, or maybe a medical emergency. So we like to recommend at least 6 to 12 months. Now that's a guess because usually you hear 3 to 6, so don't worry. But 6 months may be enough when the economy's humming along, basically in 2019, pre-COVID again. But 12 months is safer, especially in uncertain economic times like we're going through right now. So saving first helps you get there. So let's talk about, we talk about spending, let's talk about debt and impact of interest. Debt is one of your generation's biggest concerns that we've seen. So it's a disservice to not even let's talk about it. So I'm not going to ask if you can guess how much, $10,000 credit card balance at 12.5% paid over 5 years, how much it will cost you because it's right there in front of you. That 10,000 all of a sudden over 5 years, you're making a monthly payment of around $225. Your total payoff is going to be close to $13,500. Actually, the number is $13,498, but that's nearly 35% more than what you borrowed, or 35% in interest. So $3,500 in interest. Some credit card interest rates are double that 12.5%. Now we've seen them all the way up to 28%. So this is a fairly conservative estimate. Getting out of credit card debt takes time. To be realistic, we say 3 years is a good starting point, but it can take more or less time depending on your situation. Think about it like this. Think about it like a regular car payment, for example, and apply the same level of discipline that you're going to be able to, on a monthly basis, pay off this credit card debt. And again, I'm seeing a lot of people in your generation when they come out of college with credit card debt that we didn't see in the past for past generations. But we talked about credit cards, so let's talk about the other big underlying debt of your generation, student loan debt. It's a difficult thing for a lot of people. A big mistake we see people often is paying off with the extended payment program, that 30-year program versus standard 10-year traditional method. They say it's a lot easier to pay $100 versus that $200 that you'll see on that 10-year plan versus that 30-year plan. A lot of people also choose that extended program, but never revisit it as they start to make more money. Again, this is for depending on your situation. That extended might be the best thing for you at the time when you first get a job, but as you get raises and you start making more money, we see a lot of people just keep paying that same amount versus maybe refinancing it and bringing it back in for a shorter period of time and just making more payments on it to get rid of that interest. It's forgotten. Sometimes, minimum payments are made. There's another way you could pay off debt and save money and interest is, they have a program called the graduated student loan method, where payments start low, but the payments get bigger basically almost every 2 years until it's paid off in 10 years versus like I said, trying to manually do it yourself because, again, it's something that a lot of people forget to go back and revisit and start making more payment. Once you get, again, we're creatures of habit. So once you get in the habit of paying a certain amount, it's very difficult in your mind to go back and increase that payment just because you got so used to just paying it. And again, 10 years of debt, of student loan debt, is a lot better than 30 years of student loan debt. So here's some tips, whether it's credit card debt, car payments, or, how pay that just here's some tips basically to pay down your debt effectively. This includes student loans as well, like I said. So again, first thing is starting with a budget. Start paying it down right away. Don't wait because, again, like I said, it's not going to wait for you, and you don't want that. Especially if it's a federal loan, you don't want that to really affect your credit score, because when your credit score goes down, that means when you go to borrow money, you have to pay a higher interest rate. So it doesn't make it's don't get caught in that cycle of doing that. Make extra payments through your higher interest rate loan or the loan with the smallest amount left to pay off. Um, Pay every 2 weeks. If it's a monthly, pay every 2 weeks, or pay by monthly. Break it up. If it's $100, break it up into $50 payments, because, again, the interest is always kicking in. So you're at least paying down that principal as much as possible. When we talk about student loans, there's some jobs that offer loan forgiveness if you're in that job or that career for more than 5 to 10 years. Um, and then also we talk about, refinancing the loans. If, say, like I said, you were paying a minimum amount, but then you're starting to make more money and you want to basically refinance that so you can pay a shorter amount of time and pay it off. Tip about student loan debt also is, when you're making those extra payments on student loans, we see our clients do it all the time is, hey, I got an extra $100 I want to kick over to my student loan debt. Make sure you do it as a separate check basically to that, and actually write on that check for principal only along with the student loan number. That way it pays that student loan that you want, because we all know that you have multiple student loans probably for every year you were in college, so at least you'll come out with at least four sometimes. So it's better, because if you don't do this, what the provider is going to do is basically break that up and spread it out through all the loans. So they're going to put $25 on each loan. So you really want to probably say, if you want to pay that extra, let's pick the one that you're going to want to do, probably the one with the highest interest rate, and pay that one off first. Another question that we always see asked is, what should I do with extra money? Should I invest it or pay off debt? And really, again, there's really no great answer to that. If you use math to make a decision, look at rate of return, interest rates. If they're equal, investing always going to win out, because the difference between compounded interest and simple interest, Ben Franklin and, Albert Einstein thinks compound interest is the greatest invention of man. And that's what you're going to get on the investing side of it. But again, it's a personal choice and should be well thought out between probably you and maybe somebody else that's close to you that you can, talk it through and talk about it with. If you hate student loan debt though, with a passion, which, we do see people, and it's all you can think about, when you wake up, go to bed at night, then I say pay those off first. If you're agnostic about it, you really don't really care, either way, you want to seek a great return in the market, well, then invest. But just know that when you invest in the market, the unknown factor is market returns. So basically, there's no crystal ball and there's no exact answer. I hate to tell, I mean, I don't want to be that person to tell you this, but there's no exact, because everybody is different. However, the main point is that you start and you make a game plan, and you actually do something versus just sitting on the sidelines and doing nothing. Because, without a game plan, you might as well just be on the sidelines getting water for those other players that are in the game. Being strategic versus random, or not paying attention at all. Let's be strategic in your financial house. Sorry about that. Let me grab some water real quick. Okay, so this is one final note on debt. It's important to use it for the right types of purchases. You know, your debt, including car loans, student loans, credit card debt, should be probably, we like to say, 28% of your gross income. Again, that's what you're bringing home. Or let's say, if you're going to put housing and utility payments in it, up to, let's say, 36%. And so that's that's where we like to see. So we've talked about the budget. We talked about handling debt. Now let's talk a little bit about investing. It's a big question we get from a lot of people, and rightfully so. I mean, that's the business we're in, but that's what everybody, especially nowadays, that's what's on top of everybody's mind. Investing can be very confusing. So let's clear some things up about it right now and make it a little bit less scary. Investing, believe it or not, has a lot to do with behavior. One of the big way behavior is affected is by media. Uh, Media, we're talking about websites, TV, social media. They're putting out content all day, every day right now. And they speak to us like we're really day traders. But realistically, most of the people that are probably on this call, most of the people in America and most people around the world, they're more investors, not day traders, but investors. And that's one of the things that, if you look at these shows, Squat Box or whatever on CNBC, you know, there's there's a trading hour, and then there's not really much talk about investments, or investing. So, a lot of people get caught up with this information and end up making very bad investing decisions. This behavior results in underperforming what the market actually provides. Last year we saw basically the market almost do positive over 30%, but the average investor did not. We'll call this gap, basically, we call it user error, where what we do. And it's basically because you get caught up in all the information. It becomes information overload, and you just start making very bad investment decisions. Again, like I said, we call it user error. I know today we're promoting being involved and being aware about your finances, but probably watching CNBC every morning all day can probably do more harm than good for most people. The one thing a lot of people overlook might be, and the best investment overall, I say, is invest in yourself. Let's take the example right here that we have on the screen. Someone that's 25 years old earning $35,000 a year. The difference of that person averaging a 3% raise versus a 4% raise over the 40 years, we're saying 25, retire at 65, is, can anybody guess? Drum roll. It's about $740,000. That's the difference. The difference between 3 and 5% might be even more. Some people say, oh, let's just double it and it's going to be 1.4. Actually, the difference is over your working lifetime, those 40 years again, is $1.7 million. It's a huge number not to be overlooked. Again, that's one of the best investments we see. Asking the correct way for a raise, being extra prepared for interviews, furthering your career through education, classes, reading. It all adds up and is a big part of your financial success. Take a senior level manager once a month out to eat, maybe for lunch. Could be the best investment you'll ever make. But please, before everything else, above all, don't take a job or a promotion just for the money. If you're, especially if you don't like it, if you dislike it, that could be extremely detrimental to you. So making more is always everything. But if you can make more money just by having a plan, you should take advantage of it. And speaking of raises and promotions, it's a great opportunity that most people miss. Once you Let's right now say, let's make that commitment that when you get that next raise or that next promotion, to automatically save a portion of it. Let's say you get that 4% raise. What if you took 1 to 2% and added to your retirement or your investment savings account? The trick is actually to do this and do it right away, so you don't get used to that extra income coming in, where all of a sudden it goes through those percentages, and you increase the amount you're spending on food, the amount you're spending on entertainment. You might take that extra vacation a year. Let's go ahead and invest it and save it. That's the best thing we see. Doing it right away as soon as you get the raise makes it a lot more easy, because you never really got that money in the first place. It never really touched your hand. Again, let's make it automated. So let's make that commitment. So recap what we've gone over. Hope we've learned, enough, but create a game plan and include the small wins. Those checkpoints in life. Uh, that way it makes it a lot easier to be accomplished. And maybe, also find a partner or a coach to hold you accountable. Um, Another one is build a better budget so you know where your money's going. Prioritize savings and let's use debt wisely. Um, but again, you know, if for you people that are online and all that stuff, and maybe you have some questions, maybe you could type them in. And this is we're going to open it back up, and David's going to start reading off some questions that we've had.
Well, Shawn, thank you so much for that. That was really informative. I'll tell you one category I would add to your budget would be the Amazon category, because I know in my household, Amazon is primary piece. So
Trust me, I had to build it into my own budget as well, because literally every time I go home or every time I walk out my door, there's an Amazon truck delivering a box outside my house. So yeah,
it only gets really bad if you start recognizing the drivers.
Yes.
Really bad. All right. So before moving on to the Q&A session, I'd like to launch our second polling question. Now that we've learned more of evaluating our financial situation to set goals, which of the following actions would you start implementing more to reach your financial objectives? A, build a better budget to know where my money is going. B, prioritize saving. C, use debt wisely. Or D, create a game plan that includes small wins.
Sorry. Nice.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty much where I would myself go, is build a better budget to know where my money's going, and definitely prioritize saving.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
That's very important.
Okay. Now I think we'll kick it off for the Q&A session. All right, Shawn. First question I have here is, what are the pros and cons of converting a traditional IRA or 401k to a Roth IRA?
There's pros and cons. So like you said, so basically what we're hearing a lot of is, you're converting a traditional IRA, which is pre-tax dollars, to a Roth IRA, which is basically after-tax dollars and contributions. The benefit is, let's say you're that 25-year-old, that 30-year-old that's doing this, you're going to have to pay taxes on that money at that time. So if that account is at 5,000, 10,000, that is basically going to be, you're going to realize it as income that year. However, as the account grows over those next 40 years, when you start taking that money out, you will not have to pay taxes on it at all. So that's the benefit of, is basically you're saying is, I'm gonna pay taxes, especially when I'm younger in my career, earlier in my career, where I might not be making what I'm going to be making when I'm in my 50s or 60s. Paying taxes now without having to pay taxes later on. So hopefully that 10,000 by the time you retire grew to 100,000, and therefore, you won't have to pay tax on that. And also there's this thing called RMDs, which is required minimum distributions, that, they changed the age. So once you hit 72 in a regular IRA account, you have to start taking money out no matter what, no matter if you need it or not, because at the end of the day, the government is saying, we want our money. I mean, they gave you the delayed taxes all that time. They gave it to you. They want to start eventually getting some of that tax money back. So in a Roth IRA, you don't have, there's no RMDs.
Okay. Second question we have on here is, should an individual have a separate bank account with a partner?
So as you can see, I'm a married man, and you're really trying to set me up with this this question. But no, we tell our clients, no, it's if you have bills to pay and things like that, you should have a joint account. Whether it's the amount of money going in might be separate for the different spouses, but you have a different separate account. If you have things that you want to just, basically discretionary income that you could put aside, that you don't want to have to really have that conversation with the spouse to be able to spend, or tell the spouse, this is the reason why, then you have that separate account. But joint accounts for probably any of those things, those 5 years that I just put up there, as far as transportation, entertainment, food, and all that stuff, that should probably be a joint account.
Okay. And what are some good tips for first home buyers in this economy?
Come in. I mean, this is probably one of the best times to buy a home, just because the interest rates are so low. Also, maybe if you had a house for a couple of years and you plan to stay in it for a long time, refinances. We're telling our clients and our individuals that we have is, this is probably one of the best times to be able to buy real estate, but at least come in with at least 20%, so you're not stuck with what's called PMI, which is based on the insurance policy that the mortgage company is going to be to take, the bank, whoever's giving you the money, they're going to have you pay extra in order to make sure that you just don't walk away from the property.
Okay, now the next one is, how much liquidity should a millennial have?
Again, 6 months at least. 6 months of your bills. 6 months, saying that heaven forbid something happens in today's economy. We're seeing a lot of layoffs. We're seeing a lot of things that are happening with employers that that trickle down. It's a trickle down economy. So at the end of the day, we're seeing a lot of participants and a lot of employees that are going through some hardships. So we say 6 months is a good number to have. So.
Okay. And when do you think is a good time to hire a financial advisor? At what point do you think it's time?
That's funny, because a lot of people say I don't have enough money for a financial advisor, but there's tons of financial advisors out there that deal with millennials, deal with starters, basically we call them in our businesses. People that are starting their career, starting to save, that'll work with you. So I think it's never a wrong time to have somebody in your corner helping you, create that financial house that you want to live in. It's, to me, there's never a bad time to have that person.
And this question came up a lot, actually, but millennials are really interested in what you think their investment plan should be. Should they go bonds? Should they go into riskier investments? Where do you think they should allocate their investments?
Okay, so I'm gonna put my disclosure out there right now, as I'm talking to a group. I'm not talking to you as an individual. So, but because I don't know everybody's individual circumstances, and it's different for everybody. But as a blanket statement, as a millennial, you should be probably more aggressive than somebody my age or somebody that's older than your parents. It's one of those things where bonds shouldn't pretty much make up a lot of your portfolio. It should be a very small percentage. You should be in the equity market.
And do you think precious metals are essential to a balanced portfolio?
I like it. I like it as putting in part of the portfolio for some diversity. Maybe some of that bond exposure that you might have, you might put into precious metals, just because you want that diversity. Something that's what we call correlation, not correlated to the market. So when the market goes down or up, it's really not going to be correlated to that as much. Unfortunately, right nowadays, in today's, everything's correlated, even bonds. We're seeing some corporate bonds follow the market. So it's a very difficult time to create a diversified portfolio. And that's what we try to say is, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Just don't go out and buy Amazon stock and have that 100% of your portfolio. Even though you might have some great returns in it the last 4 or 5 years, that's about putting all your eggs in one basket. And we try to teach our people, or educate our people, and basically diversifying the portfolio.
Okay, and one of the attendees asked the question, I have $40,000 saved. What do you recommend I do with it? My husband and I already have 401k set up.
If let's say you need 20,000, we'll do, those 6 months that we talked about. Take that 20,000 and get a diversified portfolio. Again, make sure it's diversified. But the thing that you have to realize is, the first thing is, take some type of risk questionnaire. You can go online, Google risk questionnaire for investments, and take some type of, to just know what type of investor you are. The thing is, you're not going to be the same investor that coworker is going to be, or that your parents might be. You might be different. And I suggest that when I have a couple, is you take it separately, and then you look at your results and try to come up with a game plan together. Because I mean, if you take me and my wife to be example, like I said, is I've been married for 16 years now. If you take my wife, she's extremely conservative and I'm a little bit more aggressive. So we have a balanced portfolio, a moderate portfolio, because we brought it together where we both can stomach those losses, but also, we see some returns that I like.
Okay. And then the next question has to do with credit cards. They want to know your thoughts on credit card fees, like annual credit card fees. And also, if you're someone who's using a credit card responsibly and you don't owe anything at the end of the month after paying your credit cards off, is it worth it to increase your limit on those credit cards?
Sometimes it's worth increasing your limit just because it helps your credit score. The more credit you have available to you, especially if you're using it very responsibly, then we do see a positive impact on your credit score, your FICO score. It's now if you're not using it wisely, I would say no, do not increase. But if you're using it wisely, like you say, and paying it off every month, then yes. As far as fees, there's a ton of credit cards out there now that have no fees. Unless you have a credit card that maybe has points and you're going to be using those points, let's say American Express or something like that, and you're getting more benefit than you are paying in fees a year. If you have that American Express Platinum card, that's for travel and everything, you're getting 5 times the amount of points if you use it for airlines or hotels and things. But you're also getting that TSA pre-check, the other things that would cost actual dollars. As long as those dollars add up to more than your fee, then it's beneficial. If you're just paying the fee just to have a credit card, I say no, it's not worth it.
Okay. And then are you still recommending bonds as part of a blended portfolio? And if you're not, what other fixed income vehicles are you using?
Yeah, we're still using bonds in our portfolios. We're doing a lot of different things as well as we're tying in real estate as well, and you're looking at residential but also commercial real estate. Um, we've been going through some things as far as on that commercial side because we're just not sure about with this work from home, how many the big corporations how much they might downsize their portfolio or their workforce as actual office space. But we're definitely we're still using bonds
Mhm.
on that fixed income side.
Are there any books that you would recommend to someone who's looking to learn more about financial planning?
What was that?
Any books that you would recommend?
Oh, I mean, there's a ton of books. Rich Dad Poor. I'm going to tell you the normal ones: Rich Dad Poor Dad, The Millionaire Next Door. Napoleon Hill makes great ones on how to invest and stuff. He's a great author. I'm reading one right now. It's called "What Would the Rockefellers Do?" And basically, it's just telling you how to make that dynasty wealth, or making that wealth that's for generations. So it's a good book to read as well.
And if you're a conservative investor, should you look into cryptocurrency as an investment?
Um, just know, like I said, is if it fits your risk profile, cryptocurrency is extremely volatile right now. So we see that volatility. So if you're going to invest in it, just make sure you have the stomach for the ups and downs. It's basically, I would say, it's like going on the Hulk at Universal. If you have the stomach for it, then it might fit some of your portfolio. It might be a piece of your portfolio, but you know, as a general, is it good or bad? It's I don't have it either. I always say investments, it might be good for some people, but bad for others. Just know that, you're able to stomach those types of returns and that volatility.
Okay, I think that wraps up the Q&A. I think we went over all the questions that came in. Oh, you know what? One more came in. How would you invest for kids' colleges?
Um, there's two different plans out there. I mean, everybody, I don't know if everybody's heard about it. There's called 529 plans that are out there. There's a prepaid portion of it that Florida prepay, which means that, if you go to a Florida college, you're basically locking in today's prices and you're putting the onus on basically the state of Florida to invest those dollars to make sure they keep up with the rate of inflation of college costs. And then you have the 529 plans where you take on that onus of investing, and basically, you create a portfolio or you have some type of target date. But again, you're taking on that onus of the returns to be able to make sure they keep up with inflation. And I'm not just talking about normal consumer index inflation. We're talking about college cost inflation, which before this year, before the pandemic, we know a lot of colleges froze the amount that, the tuition went up. But previously, within the last, decade, you were seeing 5 to 6% in that inflation. It was definitely higher than regular inflation. So, but we're strong believers in 529 plans, either the prepaid or the one that you do on your own. But it's basically almost like that Roth. It's basically a Roth IRA for education. As long as you're using it for qualified education purposes, which they've increased actually, they include now, the computer, the dorm rooms, all that stuff. You're able to use those dollars and not have to pay any taxes on the gains.
Great. And then the last one we got here is, what are the first steps to starting a financial advising company?
First step, starting a financial advising company, have very good clients. No, I mean, learning a lot, education. Education is very important. You need several different licenses to start your own, to make sure that, you're taking that fiduciary responsibility, putting the client first, just doing the right things by the client. If you have that mentality, you go in that mentality and you keep that mentality throughout your whole career, you're going to do well. You're going to do, but it's going to be some bumps and bruises at first. There's going to be people that, you might talk to. You get a lot of no's in my business. And that was different for me. I was always good at sports and everything. So, things became, it was pretty easy for me, but I've got more bumps and bruises in the financial world than I have when I was on the football field.
Okay, well, I think that wraps it up. Shawn, thank you so much for taking the time today to discuss everything with us. We really appreciate you taking the time, and thanks again for everything.
Oh, no problem. And David, hope I see you in the future, in
we bump into each other.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for everything. And we should be sending out a link to everyone that registered for this. You'll have a link of the whole presentation taped so that you can watch it again if you need to.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.